Hi everyone, welcome to my YouTube channel. Hope you all are doing extremely well. So today in this video we have Mukul with us, and in this video we are going to discuss about GSOC. From the most basic questions we'll be starting all about GSOC, like how it is helpful, what is basically GSOC, and how you can participate. All these questions we are going to discuss. So make sure to watch the complete video. But before proceeding further to the video, if you are new to this channel or if you haven't subscribed my channel till now, then guys make sure to have maybe regarding placement or whatnot, so you can discuss over there and they'll be sorted as well. So do join our Telegram channel as well. And one more thing to mention, that even Mukul has his channel. I have mentioned his channel, so you can check in the description, and he's also creating amazing stuff, so make sure to check out his channel as well. So yeah, Mukul, that's all from my side. You can start with your introduction.
Okay. Hello everyone. Thank you so much. Thank you so much, Soumya, for a very good start. I am Mukul Kumar. I am working as a software engineer at Amazon, and I have some great experiences in tech. Before joining a company, I did a good amount of open source stuff. I participated in multiple open source programs. Let it be Google Summer of Code, GSOC, and like there are multiple programs in which I have participated, mentored, and contributed. Right now I still spend a few time of my to invest on open source, like make open source a better place. So this is
Mhm.
kind of like very basic things about myself. Currently I'm trying to create content as well, so that I can share my experiences,
Mhm.
and that's like pretty much about myself.
Okay, glad to know about you. So let's hop on to the next question. So first of all, the most basic questions that many of the students must be having in their mind: what is basically GSOC? So let's discuss about this.
Okay, so GSOC is an open source program, and by open source, like open source is a thing that we have created for ourselves. In basic terms, like we can say it is for the people and by the people. Like if you want to get something, like it is basically a technical term. Like we connect open source with technical stuff, but we can like relate it with everything. But if we are talking in tech terms, then open source is something that we can it is something, it is a tangible thing, it is a tangible community where we can contribute to the code bases and documentations, and we can benefit from those things as well. Let me take a couple of examples. Let's say
Sure,
we
sure.
might have used VLC media players, we might have used Mozilla Firefox, and Wikipedia is a really good example, Python language, Node.js, React. All these things are open source, right? There
Mhm.
are a lot of languages that we use on daily basis, these are, and those languages are open source. So let's say if I'm using Python and I face an issue, or I feel like there can be something that which can be improved. So I just jump to their organization, see their projects, and improve that thing. No one is going to stop me from that. And they don't charge for their services as well. So this is basically open source. We are benefiting from like great coders. We don't have to build everything from own.
Mhm.
And just to like promote open source, in 2005 Google started a program called open like Google Summer of Code. And this program is basically hosted by Google. And what like the aim of this program is to promote and uplift open source. Now, like, by promoting, why we are doing that? Because open source is something which in which we don't get any kind of benefits, like a hard coded benefits. Let's say when I'm doing an internship or when I'm working at company, they pay me some amount for fixed amount of time, right? But at open source, we are like this is open for all. No one is paying for that, and no one is like earning money from that software as well. If you look at look at Wikipedia, they're not making money from their website. They don't advertise stuff, they don't do this kind of marketing and things, right? This is a community effort which is building Wikipedia, and like it is still going on.
Mhm.
And this is the reason we need to uplift these kind of things, uplift open source programs, open source, like the code bases and other things which are related to open source. Like they can be software or a website or a documentation or any some good guidelines as well. So Google started with a plan of like they wanted to uplift this thing using Google Summer of Code. It started in 2005, and now it is going like a very now it has become a very massive thing in the open source universe. And talking about how Google Summer of Code works, it is kind of a very simple process. Like we have to look on the projects, what are the projects available open source, and we participate into them. We basically try to contribute something. Let's say I know React JS. I can see projects of React JS, and I can do some like tweaks in the code base and add some more features into that. Then I can apply into the same organization saying like I'm interested in this project, and I would like to contribute more to this project. Then the organization evaluates our proposal, and then they tells us if we are selected or not. When we get selected, we get a good amount of time to work on the proposal, like the things that we have proposed in our proposal, the code changes and all the documentation and stuff. So this is how it works. Like basically there are organizations and there are contributors like us.
Mhm.
We work on the projects of organizations, and Google pays both. Google pays us for working, Google pays organization for maintaining the code base and maintaining the mentors as well. So like it is kind of a win-win situation for everyone. Open source projects are getting like more valued, we students are getting more exposure. We are able to like work on great projects. Like our personal projects are kind of a mess. Like if I
Mhm.
look at my old projects that I used to work on, they're a complete piece of trash. So when I started contributing to open source, then I understood how to maintain code bases, how do we maintain databases and things. Then I learned how exactly we work on scale. This is something that I learned from open source only, and GSOC helped me to learn these things. So
Okay.
this is how like it is beneficial for a student. Organizations and projects are getting great contributors across the globe, not from a single company, not from a single country. And
Mhm.
and like why Google is doing, because Google knows open source is something without which they haven't been existed. Like there are a lot of startups, there are a lot of companies which won't even start if open source wasn't a thing. So that's why like big tech companies, we promote open source. Like there are like Google is just an example, GSOC is just the beginning. There are a lot of places where we can see open source like booming up, and this is kind of a really good thing to see. So I believe we have covered like the basic things, like how open source work,
Right.
what Google Summer of Code is, and how the process of Google Summer of Code works.
Okay. So I must say that you have given a proper brief. You mentioned about like what it is, how it works, about contribution, about mentors and all that stuff. So yeah, it was a good brief. I must say that most of the students who are, or the audience that is watching the video, must have got the proper idea about the same. So now let's come to the eligibility criteria, that who is basically eligible for this particular program.
Okay. Earlier, like from last, let's say if we take an example of 2019, 20 and previous, it used to be for students only. But now Google thought of let's expand to other people as well. You don't have to be a college student or a school student. You can participate if you are 18 above and you have like you are eligible to work in your country. By eligibility in work, I mean you must have not like criminal cases on you or this kind of things. If you don't have these things, then you can work on Google Summer of Code, even if you're a working professional or a college student or a school student, or you're just a freelancer. So anyone can work like participate in Google Summer of Code and contribute.
Okay, must say that's an amazing initiative. Like no such restriction is there. Even like anyone can contribute and participate. Okay, so the most basic thing, the important one is like someone is just starting, maybe student, a professional, anyone. So they need some kind of guidance, like how they can start, how they can approach the things. As you mentioned, you have to come up with a proposal, then you have to reach out to organizations, and like in short, you can take your example. It's like everyone we have started, right? So how you did these kind of stuffs.
Okay, so I'll start with my example. Like when I got to know about Google Summer of Code, I was the year was 2018, I guess. I didn't knew much about these things. There were no YouTube videos, there were no blogs, there were no things to like look about. So I used to like search and read things online, which took a lot of time. But I wasn't even a very good coder back then. But this is something that I knew like this is a really great thing to add in my resume. I came from a tier 3 background. I'm not from a tier 1 college. So I wanted to do something big. And GSOC like sounded like a big thing to me since it had Google. The stipend was like 3000 USD for 3 months, which was around 2.1 lakh rupees. Like when I was in college, the internship that we used to get was around 2000 rupees for 1 month, and they used to assume that we are laborers of them. And at that time I was getting like 2.1 lakh for like 3 months, which was a very attractive thing, right? So these were some basic motivations that came into my mind, like the GSOC brand value. It is connected with Google, it's going to build up my resume, it's going to help me get referrals. So this is how it started. And I started reading about it, learning more about it, and like started a tech stack as well. I wasn't even a very good coder back then, but I knew I had to do some development to get into GSOC. So I jumped to a language called Java. I did some basic stuff in that and started building applications just from YouTube courses, Udemy courses from scratch. Like I didn't had any mentorship at that time. So I started these things and like started contributing with open source. Like if you're jumping in the world of open source, then there's a very basic thing called Git, which is a version control system. So if a newbie is like jumping into open source, you have to learn this thing: GitHub, Gitbucket, GitLab. These are other websites which uses a version control system. So if you're a new beginner, you have to learn this thing because it's going to help in in your company in like everywhere you go, you will be using it. So I learned about that, I used that, and the like I just started contributing to some random projects, not even organizations project. So there was a friend of mine, I chose his project, I made some basic changes and submitted a pull request, and he accepted that since it was good. So this is how I started. And the first main contribution that I made in an organization was a typo. So there in the README, like in the description, there was a spelling mistake. I corrected that, and it got merged. So it was a very big thing for me to getting something. So you have to start with very basics. Like you cannot say like I am a very good developer, I can fix this bug, I can do this thing. It is not possible, right? We are students, we learn from our experiences, we start from basic staircase thing, we start from number zero. So if you are like if you want to get into open source, just start as early as possible. Start get like pick any language, can be C++, Python, Java, whatever suits you. Try to build something, look for projects. And even if you don't want organizational projects, you can start with your friends projects or any normal project. When you get comfortable with the basics of contribution, when raising a pull request, creating a good commit message, and these kind of things, you can search for organizations. And to search or for organizations is kind of a very simple thing. You just have to search Google Summer of Code organizations. There is a official website of GSOC. You can go there, search projects, start contributing to them. There are channels like Gitter, Slack, Discord, where you can communicate with people who can help you to set up the project, or whenever you get stuck something, build issues and those kind of things. So like the steps are quite simple. You just have to look for projects, go to GSOC website and search for a specific tech that you are interested, let's say Python. Choose a project, start contributing, and like submit a proposal, and then wait for your results. Like this process is quite lengthy, so that's why I have created a couple of videos on that on my channel. But this is something that like which adds a really good amount of value, like a really big value to your resume and your portfolio as well. So the biggest suggestion that I would like to give to beginners is like start as early as possible. Start after just like watching this video.
Great, great. So again, you mentioned all the things that is really important, and you give a brief introduction, brief idea about the stuff. So next question, as you mentioned that it is very important. So what I do believe is doing something for passion. That's one thing, but at the end, money matters, right? So many of the like the audience or those who are watching this videos, they must be having that this thing in their mind that how this open source is helpful for them to get a job. And do you really believe that this GSOC, this open source, helped you even to get a job? So let's discuss about this.
Okay, let me start with my experience. To be honest, every week I get like around 4 to 5 recruiters reaching me out since they saw my Google Summer of Code tag, they saw my GitHub contributions, they saw my GitHub profile and the project I have worked on. So
Mhm.
if you have participated in Google Summer of Code, it kind of becomes a proof that you are a good developer. So
Mhm.
companies just if I'm a recruiter, I'll search on LinkedIn GSOC Android developer and I'll get the best developer students to hire. And this actually happens. There are companies like Zomato, Urban Company, ShareChat, and Gojek, and there are a ton of companies who prefer GSOC students. I remember there's a company called Gojek. They pays more than Amazon, Microsoft, and in for different positions they pay a
Mhm.
really good amount and they usually contact GSOCers. So when I just completed my GSOC, they contacted me for an internship. Unfortunately, I failed that internship interviews, but then I grabbed the full-time job of theirs as well. Although I didn't join, but they contacted me again since I was a GSOC student. I get referrals quite easily, and in managerial discussions, whenever in fact, in my Amazon interview second round, the discussion that happened on GSOC was around for 35 minutes. That is not usual. And the interviewers were quite impressed on the things that I have worked on the GSOC period. They were like quite happy to see a student working on great products. So
Mhm.
it basically adds a good value, and like getting into job, you have an extra edge. You're not in the crowded people. Like if you are in a crowd, the recruiter will be able to see, okay, this guy is a GSOCer, we can select him. This is an ICPC coder, we can select him for an interview, or we can share the test link to that person. So these kind of things happens a lot. And talking about startups, they just look for GSOC students. Startups don't basically hire on the basis of data structures and algorithms like FANG companies do. So they just look for GSOCers, they hire them, they interview them regularly, and that's how I every week I'm getting an recruiter reaching out to me saying that I like your GSOC profile and the work that you did on GSOC. So I would like to I would like to conduct an interview with you for my company. We can skip this round, we can skip that round. These kind of things happens with me quite usually. So this is the most beneficial thing that you get after completing GSOC.
Okay, understood. Now I think most of the people is going to work on this. As you can see, you have mentioned. So it seems like things become sort of easy when you got this tag that you just mentioned. But even getting this is not easy. Obviously, you must have done hard work. You mentioned that the process is quite lengthy. So yeah, like at the end, hard work pays off. So that's what happening with you. So glad to know all these things. I hope that we have covered most of the questions that will be there in most of the students' mind or audience, whoever is watching the video. So yeah, perhaps we can end the video. But before ending the video, I would like to ask you if you have any tip, any suggestion, or anything, any motivational quote even work. So if you want to add something at the end, so that would be great.
Sure. As I told earlier, start as early as possible. This is the first thing, and the second thing is like don't look for things um, that that are not sufficient. Because when I was a college student, I had a laptop which was quite old. It had an i3 processor, and it used to take like an hour to complete the build of an Android application. But still, I managed to complete Google Summer of Code. I used to build an application on that. So don't things let you down. Just start as early as possible, be motivated, start working on that, and spend as much as time you can. Like when I did GSOC, I was completed my first year. So like I was competing with people with fourth year or who are doing masters and stuff. I didn't like thought about them. I just put in my efforts, spend 20 hours a day. I remember there was a time when I was spending 20 hours a day on this single target. Like aim for one thing, start as early as possible, and just don't stop. These are the basics of anything. If you want to do anything, you can do completely do that thing just because of these basic principles.
Great, great. So thank you for mentioning these things. And again, Mukul, thanks a lot for coming on my channel and share this useful information with all the audience. All the best for your journey. And yeah, that's all from us.
Thank you, Soumya. Thank you, Soumya, for like this great session and letting me spend some time on your channel as well.